Live with you on KTRS, Martin Kilquin in for McGraw-Millhaven. First Rule Film and Broadcast inside the University Tower here. It's going to be a beautiful day. Still a little bit dark outside, 6:38. McGraw is under the weather, hopefully back at it tomorrow. Over the weekend, one of the developments, the New York Times, with their story, I believe it came out either late Friday afternoon, late Friday, and published on Saturday, but it's the first account that we have had of what Darren Wilson, the police officer from Ferguson, in the Mike Brown shooting, his account of what took place. And it's important to note where the New York Times got their information. Of course, they're unnamed sources, but this is not a grand jury leak. This is not from the Ferguson Police Department. The New York Times, with multiple people contributing to the piece, said these are comments that were made to the government as part of their civil rights investigation. Remember, the Attorney General, Eric Holder, was here. They're conducting their own parallel investigation. So the comments and what they were able to glean from that, their sources, not related to the grand jury, although one is able to look at this and say it's obviously going to be consistent. And Officer Darren Wilson, who spoke to the grand jury
for several hours,
and talked to the federal authorities, I would assume, I think it's safe to say, it's going to be the same thing that he's telling them. So it does have great value here, even though it's not exactly what's taking place inside that grand jury. But Darren Wilson telling investigators that he was pinned in his vehicle in fear for his life as he struggled over his gun with Michael Brown. That's according to the government officials who have been briefed on the federal civil rights investigation. Darren Wilson told authorities that during the scuffle, Mr. Brown reached for the gun.
He punched him, scratched him repeatedly. There was blood on the gun, blood on the officer.
And blood inside the vehicle.
Yes.
And that's consistent with what I think we've heard, that there was a scuffle and that there was a battle over the gun. It was fired twice in the car. The forensic tests performed by the FBI confirming that the first bullet struck Mr. Brown in the arm. The second bullet missed. Forensics did show that Mr. Brown's blood was on the gun as well as the interior door panel and on Officer Wilson's uniform. So you read with great interest any of these details that come out. But again, I think if you read the whole piece, and again, you can find it, the New York Times, their website, it doesn't get into what transpired after that. And all of the witness accounts we've heard have been real specific about what took place in the street. And a lot of the witnesses say, I didn't see the earlier part, or I caught the end of the scuffle.
Some say he charged the police officer, some say he didn't.
Right. The key to the case, I think, is still, was he in fact surrendering? And if you read the New York Times account, it doesn't really address that.
Yeah.
In terms of what he's told the authorities. Because I think the most vital piece of information, while this is compelling and interesting, and it may be huge because of state of mind, and the legal experts have been saying this from early on, that all a police officer has to say in any of these, not just this case, but they get a lot of latitude because they have to say, I believed I was in imminent danger. So this is very valuable and important. But as you read it, I think you're still saying, so what transpired after that? Did he run away? Did you pursue him? Did he come after you? Did he charge you, which we have heard?
I also
That's
heard a
the part
report
I'm missing.
He had his hands to the side, not up in the air, as first reported. But, we don't know. These are different accounts from different people. And I was reading some of the comments from people on Facebook and things like that. And, of course, then the whole heated debate started again, and people are, angry, and they don't believe this, and and they're just coming up with excuses, they say, at this point, and it's a tough topic, and every time a new report comes out, I cringe. I really do, because I think one side or the other is, more angry, and then we have more protests and more violence, and we had a lot over the weekend.
But I think what people are wanting to know, okay, where are we headed with the grand jury? Are we looking at an indictment? And we've all heard sort of the whispers or the theories. It's not going to lead to an indictment. I think this piece is the first time you sort of read it, and not from the locals, but from the Fed saying, based on what we're hearing, based on the testimony and how the system works with police testimony, we may be going in that direction that you're not going to hear an indictment. I think if you read this and you believe the sources from the federal government, there may be enough from the testimony of the officer to say, I feared for my life. But when you read this, and whatever side of this issue you're on, I think you still want to know a little more. So, how did the altercation in the car? So we had a gun go off in the car. He reached for it. Is that what happened? What led to that? How did we get to that point? And then, most importantly, after the altercation, what took place in the street. And that's not addressed in this story, and I'm not sure why. When you're talking to the sources, and again, it's a great piece of reporting, the New York Times, digging deep, but I read this and I said, okay, this is good, but what happened after that? What is his testimony, the officer, as to what took place after the incident in the car?
And maybe they want to release a little bit at a time. Maybe they don't want to go, release exactly everything that they hear or they heard happen. And also, too, we're looking at several different charges here. It's not just first-degree murder or murder, and there's manslaughter. There's different charges that the grand jury can indict the officer on. So,
but I do think this is an indication. They're trying to even tell, not they, because they're just reporting what has been said, but I think it's an indication of where we're headed. And getting the indictment, and we've had Chet Pleban on many times, he said it's based on the standard. This isn't based on this particular case. It is the standard that's used all the time. It's tough to get an indictment. So I don't know what the reaction around town is going to be. That's what we all sort of fear, I think. But if you read this piece, it's well done, but I just need a little more.
Yeah.
I do want to know a little more.
We all want a little more, without a doubt. But it's still, I don't know, it makes me nervous.
I don't think I think that's the common sentiment.
Yeah.
Downtown,
everywhere,
all around town.
Yeah.
All right, you can check it out yourself on the New York Times. Their piece came out Friday afternoon with their sources telling us what Darren Wilson has said to authorities. We need to break. We'll check the markets when we come back. Martin Kilcoyne in from McGraw-Millhaven here on KTRS.